Ahoy and welcome. I am the Pirate Tester, and today I'm going to be talking about SQL for testers, why you would want to use it, and how you can use it. Now, there will be no PowerPoint presentations, there'll be no computer graphics. This is going to be me talking to you with bits of paper. Imagine you have come up to me at work or at a conference or at a meetup and gone, Lee, I need to use SQL at work when I'm doing some testing, but I don't understand what it is or why would I want to use it. There's other ways I can get information. So I'm going to try and explain to you why you would want to use SQL, how it will benefit you, and then what you need to do to use it. So I work in finance industry. And so I might have some testing where I go, right, I've got this lovely new UI and I want to make sure that customer data gets shown correctly. So I might go, right, I'm going to search for customer 1234. They might search for their name, so I might search for myself. And I go, it shows me this information. But how do I know that the information that it's returning is correct and it hasn't either omitted something, included some other person's information, it hasn't changed it in any way? Or conversely, you might be doing some testing. You go, right, I need to find some people who have over £1,000 in their account. Well, if you had to go through a front-end screen just typing in random names and trying to go, oh, I hope this person has money, it would be incredibly tedious. With SQL, you can look at your database. You can peek behind the curtain and go, right, there is all this information. How do I see it? How do I access it? And it's very likely that SQL, or sometimes known as SQL, I call it SQL, is how you will access the information. And it can be both very easy and difficult at the same time. It ultimately depends how refined you want your information to be. So for the purpose of this, we're going to have an example table, and I've called it people. So we've got 5 rows on our table. We have columns which go this way, rows that go this way. So we've got a column called ID, a column called forename, a column called surname, and a column called age. So every row is unique, but they might be quite similar. So, for example, row 1, we have a Lee Marshall who is 37, because I am 37 and I'm called Lee Marshall. So I started with myself. But we've also got another Lee Marshall on row 5, but this row Lee Marshall is age 0. So I just want to give an example of, you could have data that is very similar but could be different. So imagine we wanted to find this information. How would we view it? So you might use MS SQL Server, and you would use what's known as T-SQL. We use Oracle SQL Developer, and that uses what's known as PL SQL. But whilst there's lots of different varieties of SQL, a lot of the core things it does is the same or very similar between them all. So we've got our table. So a very basic SQL query is select star from and then the name of your table. So your select is, what am I trying to do? Select is like it's trying to say, show me. Star means everything. So if you went, I want to see everything on this table, just high level, what's in there? Select star is show me everything. From, so where is it? And then in this case, the table is called people. So select star from people. SQL is not case sensitive, so you can have it all typed in lower, in upper, in mixed case. So you might want the starting there. It doesn't matter. So don't worry about that. That is not something you have to worry about when you're writing SQL. So if you wrote this, you would see this. Lovely, nice and simple. But sometimes you might not want that. The reason being, you might have a table that could be, so this is 4 columns across and there's 5 records. Sure, show me everything. Let's be nice and lazy. I work with tables that could be over 100 columns long and has millions of records in the table. You don't necessarily want to go, show me everything, because there is too much everything. And it could be distracting you from what you needed. So you might want to say, right, I want to look for something specific. So as an example, where I said you want people with £1,000 or people called Lee or so forth. So this is where you can upgrade your query. So there's lots of different options and things you can do, but some of them you probably won't really use as a tester. So let's say, for example, we wanted to find everyone on our people table who is 37. So we could see initially that we could go, okay, 37, 37, groovy. But how would you write that? So we're keeping our select star from people because at the moment we still want to go show me everything that turns up. And then you can go where. So this is where you're given your specifics. So it's like saying, I want everything on the table, but under these conditions. So we've said where age. So this is where you can specify your columns. So because we know the names of our columns, we can specify it. Equals, and then we put the number 37 in quotes. You don't always have to put numbers in quotes, depending on how the column is built. But if you were to put words, it has to be in single quotes. So I use single quotes for everything. It's just a habit. It doesn't ruin it. So you might sometimes see it without it. Don't worry, it will still work. So if we said this, we would only see record number 1 and 3. The others just wouldn't even turn up. It would just go 1 and then ID 3 and then nothing else on the table. But there's a lot more than just equals you can do. Don't know how. So, for example, you could say, if you want to say greater than 37, you would use the triangular arrow. So on a UK keyboard layout, don't know what it's like on the American ones or everywhere else. It's the one that's also your full stop or period. And if we said, show me people who are older than 37, instead, we wouldn't have got that one or that one because they're exactly 37, but we would have got Jack Jones, 65. Or you might go, I want people who are less than 37. In this case, you use the opposite one. So on the English keyboard, that would be the comma next to M. And that will show us everyone who is less than 37. So in this case, so that way we would have got Jane Jones, and we've got the 0-year-old Lee Marshall. And you can say, but there's a lot of different things you can do with that. Way more than I can fit into a video. But with SQL, it is a case of start with small queries. And there's free ones you can find online. A really good website to use is called W3 Schools. If you want to learn SQL, and there's lots of other things it teaches. It's got little scenarios you can play around with it. It has got like a sandbox type bit where you can just put in queries. You can do all sorts with the data in there. You can lots of tables, so you can have a good play with that, and it will help teach you in steps. But ultimately, treat it as a way to get what you need to allow you to do your testing. If you are put off at the idea of coding, I'm not massively interested in coding. What the developers do is way more difficult, complex, and so forth. Treat this as a way to find your data. To eventually, when you learn it, you could edit your data so you can change what you need to be to go, okay, I don't want 2 Lee Marshalls. I want one of them to be called something else. And then you could go, right, I've changed it. Let me have a look on the front end screen. Oh, yeah, I can see that their name has changed. So you can prove that it's pulling the correct stuff, for example. And it just helps you have more control over what you're seeing or doing. And eventually you might end up wanting to look at what the developer's done. You could see all the lines and lines of code and go, I don't get what you're trying to do. But if they went, right, today we need you to test a report that only shows people who are over 60. Well, you might go, the report runs, you go, well, no one came up, and you go, but did it come back because we don't have anyone over 60 or because there's a problem? And if you know how to look at your source data, you can go, yeah, that's a bug. So if we did have, I want a report, show me all the people we have who are over 60. If Jack Jones didn't turn up, we, because of being able to query it with our SQL, could go, there's a bug with this, and we can explain how we know there's a problem. And it might be the developer, instead of putting over 60, they put equals 60. And that's where also you can manipulate your data for some boundary testing. So in our report, we went over 60. We go, well, I want someone who's 61, who's 60 and 100 years old, just to make sure that you haven't put any caps in or something like that. But without being able to control your data, you can't necessarily say if something is working as you expect it, because you can't necessarily confirm your expectations in advance. So this is why SQL is very useful. You might only end up working in a back-end role. So I've been working in back-end databases for a couple of years now. I haven't really had any front-end GUIs that work with it. But I have done some testing before where I had lots of front-end things, but I needed to use SQL to confirm the back-end. So I can go, right, I press this button on the front, it should open an account, it should send a letter, it should do something. Has it done it? And if it's not done something here, you can go, right, between pressing the button and coming to my database, something's gone wrong in the middle. And it can help narrow down where your defects might be. It might be a misunderstanding of what you're looking for. And it could be a problem with yourself, not with the code that the developer's done. We are fallible as well. So SQL is very helpful for a lot of things you do. Front ends have to eventually call back ends. By understanding how you can query a database, eventually edit it, change it, so forth, it opens up your scope of testing. But it isn't the same as saying, write me these 100 lines packages that will generate the report. That's like saying, I want to learn a bike so I can ride to work, compared to, I need to build a car from scratch. Eventually you could go learn how to build a car and get to work super quick and do fancy things. But with your SQL, you're like, right, I can still do the little things I need. And that's where I think trying to reaffirm for people who want to learn SQL as a tester is, don't compare what you're trying to do with the developer. Your SQL, it won't go live. It is there to help you prove or disprove something. So if it's not the neatest, it's a bit chaotic, if it runs, accept that for now. You might over time go, oh, if I do this, it might run faster, or actually I was not getting as much data as expected because I was using greater than, and I could use greater than equals or so forth. But by start writing your code, it will help you find things. If you want some help or advice or things you're trying to do with SQL, feel free to get in touch. So you can put comments below. You can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at The Pirate Tester on Twitter. You can message me through my blog, which is thepiratetester.wordpress.com. And you can email me, which is, guess what? thepiratetester@gmail.com. So there's lots of ways to get hold of me if you want to get hold of me. So if you want some help, I can try and explain to you as much as I can. I'm not developer level SQL, but I'm better than I was a few years ago. I could do basic queries, but not too special. Now I can join tables to one another. I can do slightly more complex queries. But also it helps me reaffirm if I know what I'm talking about, because if you go, Lee, I want to do this, how do I do it? If I go, I don't know, I could try and find the answer. Or it might be, I don't know, that's more developer level and these are the places you need to go. But I'm hoping I've tried to give a high level picture of why you might want to use it and how simple it is. I mean, that is 2 lines, and that pretty much is show me this table. If you don't know the names of the tables you need to go to, ask your developers, ask your DBAs, because if they're saying we're going to do this and it should go here, they should be telling you where these things are. And if you lack the access to do it or so forth, then push for it. If they're not allowing you access to these databases, find out why. If they go, we've only got a production one, well, where's the developer checked it then? They must have somewhere to test it. If they haven't, they shouldn't be giving you code they themselves haven't tested properly. But you should have suitable test environments. If not, push for it. Find out why. And it doesn't have to be as good as your production. It could be trimmed down. It could be filled with duff data. But so long as you have something you can use, you can play with. And then find out what your limits are. So if you were to accidentally delete all of your data, and yes, it's very annoyingly easy to do that, is there a way for it to get put back? Do they have a backup of it and you can put it back? Does it get saved nightly? So if you do something, they can go, okay, we'll put it back to what it was yesterday or a week ago or a month ago. Then find out, would you risk impacting other people? Because it's likely you might work with other testers who know SQL but don't necessarily talk about it. Annoyingly, SQL is very, very boring, so it's not something people go, yes, I know SQL, come to me. It's not as flashy as front-end stuff, but it's very useful. So give it a go. Try out some SQL. Find out if SQL is used where you work or where you want to work. It's highly likely it is. Have a look at W3 Schools, fantastic site. If you Google like how to learn SQL and that kind of stuff, it's up there. I have used it myself, even for just going with, I haven't used this syntax or whatever for a while. I think I'm using it right. Can I have a refresher? There's no harm in refreshing yourself with stuff. If you go, I used SQL 20 years ago and it's been a while, because SQL's been around for years. Refresh yourself, have a play, give it a learn, but give it a go. But don't be intimidated. So long as you start small, build up on it. Rome wasn't built in a day. Hundreds of lines of SQL don't necessarily need to be written when you just show me a table. Then you could scroll through and then eventually go, okay, I don't need to see all this. I only want to see these columns or these data or so forth. And eventually you can narrow it down. But just start with, show me the table. Select star from table. And unless it is your hundreds of columns wide and millions of records deep, odds are you've got small enough data you can look around with, understand and go, okay, this is where it's coming from. Groovy. So hope that has encouraged you to have a look, give it a go, get in touch if you need help, and get in touch with ideas of things you would like me to talk about and share my experiences on. I've been the Pirate Tester. Thank you very much.